Ladies and gents, home studio X, and this is how Ukraine smoked Russia's strategic bomber fleet by channel Cappy Army. Yes, new task and purpose guy channel, I guess. Yeah. So, okay. As far as I know about the recent things, that this is historic in a way because they hit Russia deeper inside using still those FPV drones. Yeah, basically Amazon drones. Still the most powerful weapon in the modern era, FPV drones apparently. So they did that and damaged a lot of Russian fleet, as far as I remember. Like at least that's the headline was there. So it's gonna be interesting because I don't think I've watched any video about it. I don't know how many. I'm pretty sure like even Sandbox I think created a video. I don't know. I'm not sure about to see that. But yeah, this is by the previous task and purpose guy Chris Cappy. He's always great at covering things like this. So yeah, let's do this one. Remember, if you like my Nixon, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. I like watching geopolitics and things like that. I don't know what like means. I mean, people should be informed about what's happening around the world. This is why newspapers still exist. Yeah, exist at least here in India. So yeah, this is very interesting to see how things are unfolding. People are since this war started, people are taking notes because it's like the major modern war. Uh, Apart from like Gaza and Israel thing, but then again like that's not much of war, is it? It's like Israel striking one place, trying to fight terrorism, and having immense collateral damage that even makes everybody question Israel. But obviously there's that, but that's not much of war because it's not two countries at war like that. Pakistan, India almost happened, but it didn't. So this is the only modern war we have right now at this scale. Before China says, fuck it, it's time for Taiwan, which like things will go out of proportion much faster. So yeah, this is just fucked up. I'm pretty sure like as I'm talking right now, there was a news like Russia hit back as well. Like, okay, I guess it's intensifying again. So let's do this one.
Today, we're going to learn why these multi-million-dollar, irreplaceable Russian strategic bombers were left naked and exposed with no overhead protection. Exactly how many aircraft were actually destroyed based on fancy new satellite and radar image evidence. How Ukrainian intelligence operatives pulled off this historic Ocean's 11 style attack, and how Russian forces might respond. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. I create weekly videos about war, weapon systems, and geopolitics, so let's jump right into it, you guys. Way back in December 2023, the Ukrainian military intelligence hatched a plan to target Russia's strategic bomber fleet, has been firing conventional missiles at their cities for years now. But there was a huge challenge standing in their way. These valuable aircraft take off from remote airfields, located over 4,000 miles or 6,000 kilometers away, which is far outside the range of.
Yeah, but strategic bomber fleet in what way? It feels like in the modern times, if anything that is not stealth, like what use that have anyway? I mean, unless you go full blown war and try to damage anti-air defenses before you try to do something. Unless you're gonna do that like in operations and like strikes here and there. Strategic bomber fleet of what? Like I'm pretty sure even if they use it against Ukraine, some kind of I don't know, anti-air defense they got from US or something, like just what is a javelin equivalent to? I forgot the name of that or shit like that. Like just mobile things can take out a lot of things, right? It's just like how FPV drones can take out tank. There's going to be something similar like that, right? Even like one of the Houthis almost destroyed F-35 of all things. Even the American what was it, like sergeant or something, I don't know, admitted that. Like this is the level we're running at. So strategic bomber for what? What were they gonna bomb? Unless they're gonna full blown like this is pure out like left and right war where they just like charge with complete like hundreds of thousands of people and just like completely like World War II level war and try to take out all anti-air defenses and then use bombers. This bomber's not gonna be much, is it?
Ukraine's attack.
Or at least that's what I think.
So they came up with a solution. Take a look at this picture here that Ukrainian SBU agents released after the attack.
Level, man.
It shows the location of the warehouse inside Russia where they stockpiled the drones and explosives. Russian FSB security agents have since geolocated it using open source markers. It was in Chelyabinsk, which is right near the border with Kazakhstan. This indicates to me that the drones were
Isn't that the same place where like that asteroid exploded? Chelyabinsk. I think it's that. Okay.
Smuggled through the international border here, which would make sense because Kazakhstan has long been a smuggling route for products that the West have sanctioned since then and not allowed to go into Russia. You guys, this part is nuts. During the course of the 18 months.
So they used Russia's own thing. Oh, Russia smuggles from Kazakhstan? Okay, we're gonna smuggle some FPV drones. How about that? This is some next level.
Long Operation Spiderweb, Ukrainian SBU agents successfully smuggled across the border about 140 first-person view kamikaze drones. Now, as someone who's been smuggled across the border into Russian territory before, I can confirm this is not an easy feat. These undercover agents prepared special wooden boxes with dozens of drones under remote-controlled hatches that would blow open with a signal. They then placed shipment orders through an elaborate system of shell corporations and dummy contracts, which sent unwitting Russian civilian truck drivers right past target air bases on the same exact time on the same exact day. On the morning of June 1st, as the trucks stopped at gas stations, restaurants, or simply drove down the highway, they deployed swarms of hidden FPV drones. Some of the locals and truck drivers actually noticed what was happening. They climbed on top of the containers to try to stop the drones, but it was too late. The trap had already been sprung. One truck driver who was interviewed by Russian state media later, RIA Novosti, the publication, he said, quote, "They were in the back of the truck and we threw stones to keep them from flying up, to keep them pinned down," end quote. All the Russian truck drivers have since told similar stories of being booked by businessmen who requested.
Oh my god, these truck drivers are fucked. Kremlin will hold them accountable, or at least, like, what is FSB? They'll take them in for questioning. Oh, that's just fucked up.
They deliver the wooden cabins to different locations around Russia. Kids, you know the lesson here, right? Watch out for strange businessmen asking you to drive near air bases. According to a Telegram channel with links to Russian state security services called Baza, some of the drivers said they received further instructions of where exactly to park the trucks. As soon as they followed those directions, they were shocked to see drones flying out of them. I mean, I know hindsight is 2020 here, you guys, but it sounds like a real suspicious job to me. Privately booked to drive a weird wooden cabin to the middle of nowhere, Russia, at a very specific time, date, and place?
Bullshit, they didn't know. Because that's just, for anyone, that's suspicious as hell. Like, okay, why? What are we doing again? Come on.
Or I don't know, maybe that's a normal Tuesday in Russia. The attack drones flew a few kilometers to their targets, and video evidence shows them slamming into multiple Russian aircraft. This might be one of the most lower enlisted private things I've ever seen. I stumbled across this video of a Russian soldier doing a live stream, selfie-style self-report on the battle damage. War Thunder forums leaking information will never have anything on soldiers looking for clout.
Yeah, Telegram, of course, that just makes sense. So yeah, just post it on Telegram. Like, yeah, all American social media is banned. So okay, then use Telegram. There you go. Oh, this is crazy, you guys. I'm streaming from this airfield which is on fire, and then shows the fire. Like, yeah, there you go. That social media shit never gonna go away.
Ukrainian drone operators had direct control over the FPV drones, it appears like, once they were deployed. National security author Dmitry Apavryelch said on X that he believes that they used Russia's own 4G LTE mobile cell network to pilot these drones. Can you hear me now? And it could have been done from outside Russia. This was a weakness in their air defense they exploited because Russian Air Force probably didn't want to jam the entire cell network for the whole civilians living in that area of those air bases. So Ukraine's success.
I mean, technically saying, how are they supposed to know this is gonna happen? Like, modern world has become such a weird place with so many technologies that creativity can basically make you can do anything with the creativity. How is Russia gonna think like, okay, 4,000 kilometers inside, they might use those FPV drones. How they're gonna get in? Like, they're not gonna think that, like, okay, they're gonna use our own cellular towers. Like, what are we supposed to do? Just take down cellular towers? Obviously now they're gonna check every nook and cranny that get inside Russia. But yeah, at the time, how the fuck they're supposed to know?
Successfully hit 4 air bases, and they targeted a 5th even further east in Amur Oblast that borders China. But that's truck caught deep, fire before reaching the deployment zone. It's like my old squad leader used to always say. Ain't no warfare like partisan warfare. Once the Trojan trucks, as they're being called, were on their way, the Ukrainian agents safely slipped out of Russian territory before all chaos was about to be unleashed. Let's do some of what's called BDA in the military, or battle damage assessment, because I've heard a wild range of how many aircraft were actually hit. You got Russia saying, oh, barely any. You got Ukraine saying, oh, tons of them. So what is the actual truth? Thanks to satellite and radar being accessible by civilians and jamooks like myself, we can actually confirm a lot of what happened now that the dust has settled a few days later. The Times dropped a couple of $1,000 to get access to these radar images and confirms 7 Russian strategic bombers appear to be destroyed at the Bela Air Base, and the Olenia had 5 confirmed hits from the video footage released. I apologize if I'm pronouncing these names incorrectly. I am not a Slav. Russian mill bloggers themselves claim the losses are less at 12 strategic bombers and 1 other aircraft, likely a giant transport. So Ukrainian...
Okay, here's what I'm really thinking. Like, if you hear of one explosion happening, can't some of the soldiers just use their assault rifle as soon as like they can get hold of it and try to shoot down any drones? I mean, I know it's not that easy, but like, how are they hitting all of the target, all 7 of them? I'm pretty sure like one of those clips just showed it just slowly approaching while other planes were already on fire. Like they had time. Like, okay, next one's gonna be in a minute. Oh, here it comes, here it comes. How nobody can just shoot it? Like even with spray and pray, you can hit some of it. I don't know.
Intelligence, SBU, and the government in Ukraine reported that up to 41 bombers had been destroyed. Then on the afternoon of June 4th, the Ukrainian government released video evidence, proof of the drones striking 24 aircraft strategic bombers, 2 of which were the very valuable A-50 radar aircraft that cost about $300 million a pop, blinding one of the Russian armed forces' best eyes in the sky. The Soviets only built around 40 of them, of which 6 were operational in the Russian fleet as of March 2025, which means that now they're down to 4. This is a very critical asset for them for finding targets and also protecting their other aircraft. The reason Russia puts vehicle...
Oh my god, that's next level, man. That damage is next level, destroying that shit, like... Knowing how the economy is working of Russia, like if this happened to America, they'd be like, oh, that's a big hit, but like, come on, it's America, it's gonna survive. Like money hit is not gonna be that big of an issue. But Russia right now, especially war times like this, that shit is next level. Like that must have felt really like heavy.
Tires, rubber tires on top of the bombers like you see there. It's their attempt to try to fool artificial intelligence systems that rely on image matching, and they want to fool them into thinking that's not an aircraft that they're looking at. So if a missile or an AI-driven drone has its camera look over there, then it might not think that it's an aircraft. I guess that explains why I've been seeing so many image capture tests that look like this recently. Since the Russian defense industry can't produce these aircraft anymore due to the production lines being shut down decades ago, these are some actually irreplaceable aircraft. This allegedly has cost the Russian military somewhere between $2 and $7 billion worth of damage. Ukrainian government claims they're going to release more video evidence of strikes on strategic bombers, but we don't know if it's going to add up from the 24 up to the 41 that they claim they've hit. The big question that jumped out to me was, why were these Russian bombers left seemingly unprotected without even a net or any kind of overhead protection? Can't someone build a warehouse or a tarp around these things? I mean, can't we be bothered to just put a net over them? There are several reasons for this. One of them possibly has to do with an arms control treaty, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaties between the United States and the USSR, in particular START 1 from the good old year of 1991. It's a successor to the New START Treaty from 2010, and those treaties required some level of transparency of strategic nuclear delivery systems. If I can count your bombers from space, I know you're not hiding extras or prepping for a surprise first strike.
Or maybe they're just showing you that while they have some others hidden. How does that even work? Oh, show me your planes. Okay, I'll just show you some. I have others hidden. You're not gonna look for them because I showed you some. Like what?
Strike, which meant heavy bombers were required to be visible by satellite reconnaissance and stationed in open view when not actively flying. No hangars or hardened shelters were allowed for this asset. You see, America does this.
Isn't that kind of fucked up? So like there's a higher wear and tear if you just leave it out on the open like that with electronics and a lot of shit. Like things would just erode eventually. Like even if you say, okay, planes are stronger, okay, fine, the fuselage and everything that's stronger, but like smaller things, electronics, wires and shit, like even bolts. Like, isn't that good for preserving? Like, if you have a hanger.
Same thing. It's why their B-2 bombers are on full display for satellite imagery at Diego Garcia Air Base, and it reduced risk of accidental nuclear war. However, fast forward, and it also means that they're vulnerable to drone attacks. Now, you might point out that Russia has suspended their participation in the New START treaty in February 2023, so they aren't bound to it anymore. And the US is no longer bound to it either. But there's also the feeling that geography was a protection all of its own, and that these remote locations are safe from attack. Over the past 3 years, Russia has moved some of these.
The problem with Russia is they just assume that Ukraine is weak and underpowered, which kind of is, but still, like, they didn't thought of the ambitious things they can do. So I think Russia needs to be paranoid the way USA is, and just needs to protect everything. Russia needs to think what is possible, doesn't matter who it is, and then protect it that way. Not just like, oh, Ukraine can't do that, Ukraine's not going to do that. Never work like that.
Bombers away from air bases near Ukraine's border in an attempt to avoid exactly this kind of sabotage from happening. So there didn't seem to be a huge incentive to start covering up bombers with giant construction projects if it didn't seem necessary. But apparently, in hindsight, it was necessary. Even if it's only 10 strategic bombers, that would amount to a devastating loss. And you might say, well, they only lost a dozen bombers, they still have like 60 or so more. But that's not exactly an accurate way of thinking about it, because oftentimes you need your bombers resting, refitting, and being repaired. These assets are on what's called a rotational readiness model. So availability is never 100%. So usually a third of the fleet can be expected to be active, then another third is going to be in refit, another 20% might be just temporarily grounded for deep refit. It's a strategic loss because Russia lost their ability to address a multi-front war as easily. The air leg of their nuclear triad might not have been completely broken, but it may have been destabilized. So why are these bombers so important? Quickly, I think I need to put into context for us all the gravity of what just happened. Only 3 countries on planet Earth operate a long-range strategic bomber fleet: the United States, China, and Russia. These are the most expensive and powerful weapons and the means to deliver them that humanity has ever produced. Ukraine targeted Russia's Tu-95, Tu-22M3 bombers, the primary strategic strike platforms for both nuclear and conventional cruise missiles. They can fire nuclear weapons 5,000 kilometers after flying a max range of 15,000 kilometers. That's what makes them so special. These bombers have been used in the past by Russia to conduct attacks inside Syria, which at one point did help them turn the tide of that war. These bombers are often seen on show-of-force runs throughout the Arctic region. They often harass American pilots near Guam, Alaska, and near the border of NATO countries around the Baltic. You've probably seen footage of their fighter jet escort pilots buzzing American pilots. They conduct these kind of probing missions with the strategic asset of these bombers. It's the tools with which great powers prod at one another, and now Russia's ability to prod at one another.
I didn't know bombers were that much stigma around it. These bombers, like, there's all the big deal in the sky. It needs protection and everything, and it's a big deal when we launch it. I didn't know that shit. Interesting.
Or project power has been severely damaged. What will the Russian government and military response be?
Eventual start of making something new or something. They can't replace them. I guess they can make new one. Okay, they'll try to replace them or something. I'm pretty sure like there was a news where when Trump said like, oh, we'll open to selling F-35 to India. Pretty sure like Putin said, you know what, we're gonna sell you our Su-57, but not just sell you Su-57, we'll tell you how to make them and try to integrate Indian things like Indian weapons and things, which is like too much of a sweet deal. You'd say F-35 is much more stealthier plane. Of course it is. The Su-57 can't even compare in that way. But it's not all about that. There's much more details behind it. Su-57 might not be really great stealth plane. It's stealth enough, and maybe it wouldn't work stealthily that well, but it's a great, powerful plane, and India can integrate shit into it, like Indian-made things, and India can even make Su-57 if they wanted to in war times or something. right? Because Russia is trying to make that deal. Same thing with S-500. They are making a joint venture so India can make it. So why is Russia doing that? So India and Russia can basically work together, grow their stockpiles, because Russia knows how to do this, but they don't have that many Su-57 because they don't have the manpower. India can just make them for India and Russia. If I mean, I'm pretty sure the deal doesn't say that, but let's be honest, that's how it's going to be. Same thing with S-500s. There might be less manpower. India doesn't have less manpower. They have technology. India needs technology. So they could just future just think of this program like, okay, let's try to make something new, joined with India and anyone else. There you go. They just ram that shit up.
Russian state media has so far reported that the US wasn't involved in planning of the attack. Whew, big sigh of relief that they're saying that. This would certainly be reason for concern for us if they were saying otherwise, or at least officially. So far, from what I've seen, the official Russian government response has been an attempt to minimize the attack. However, if we look at the Russian mill blogger community, which is very influential in Russia, they have been furious, with a lot of them famously calling it Russia's Pearl Harbor.
Surprising Taz didn't save them. Yeah, Taz for the AI, not the people who looking at it. Like, people are not going to be fooled. Come on. And yeah, the Jedi's laser. I think they're talking about the Chinese thing, right? Like they have a silent killer. Silent killer? Something silent. Which is a laser that is anti-drones, FPV drones, apparently. China made them. Now, how effective they are, who the fuck knows? In Pakistan, Chinese defenses didn't work, so who the fuck knows? But it's like this Chinese things that they have some of it. Maybe they weren't at that place. But it's a laser that can disrupt electronics, and when it come close, basically destroy it with a high intensity laser.
Russian war blogger Roman Alkin wrote on Telegram, "We hope that the response will be the same as the US response to the attack on their Pearl Harbor, or even tougher." What even? The historical analogy is pretty weak here, in my opinion. Whether you are for Russia or against Russia, I mean, Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack by Japan before a formal declaration.
If Ukraine suddenly attacked Germany or France and blew their plane up, this analogy would work. Maybe. But not in here. How does that in what? I guess they're just in the scale way. Like, America wasn't even part of the war. Like, yeah, and it's just like Pearl Harbor was the reason they joined in at that scale. It was a different thing, ocean away. Like, yeah, none of it makes sense. But they're just trying to say, like, oh, this was such a big destruction. So Russia has to respond. Yeah, Russia blew up the most of the Ukrainian cities. What you're talking about? The scale doesn't even compare that way if you go back and forth.
Of war. Not to litigate this point too much, but at the very least, these two countries have been going at it at war for years now. This is nothing like Pearl Harbor. Yeah. Russia has it in their nuclear doctrine that if their strategic delivery systems are attacked, they might reach that threshold for a nuclear retaliation. It's a possibility. However, it's unclear if this attack would invoke that kind of response, and it seems unlikely due to the fact that it would incur the wrath of many other countries.
It's not just that. If Russia uses nuclear weapon, India will be done with Russia. Why? The whole thing with India and Pakistan is that only thing Pakistan has that worries India is nuclear weapon. That's it. Pakistan doesn't have anything else. Like, everything Pakistan has is nothing compared to Indian things, even the geography. So the only threat that is a nuclear threat, and they basically call the gamble this time. Like, okay, I don't care about your nuclear weapons. We're gonna attack you, type of shit, and just blew the shit up everywhere, right? So if Russia uses a nuclear weapon, Pakistan would use the nuclear weapon. Like, they're not the first anymore. You understand that? So yeah, India's basically gone as an ally if that shit happens, right? And India is one of the fastest growing economy, not to mention fourth economy in the world. Yeah, it's gonna be one of the top very soon, just by number of production and just all around way. Like, there's a reason why you hear about every time like Apple and all the factories slowly moving to India. There's a reason behind that. So you don't want really good relationship of the past all the way to Soviet Union just disappear like that. And for what? Not to mention, every nuclear power will have this innate make an example thing to it to bomb the shit out of Russia, which most of European countries already want to do that. They just need an excuse. I don't think Russia will ever use nukes against Ukraine. That's just not going to happen, because why risk it? Ukraine doesn't have nukes. Ukraine can't nuke Russia. Why would Russia risk that shit? So that's not gonna happen.
Former Ukrainian officer and open source analyst Tatarigami said, quote, notably, Ukrainian strikes appear to have deliberately avoided the more modern and nuclear-capable Tu-160 bombers, instead targeting the Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 platforms. We believe this selectively was a deliberate decision to avoid escalation.
All of this. It's all need one of the operator to fuck up and just bomb the plane next door. Ah, shit.
By targeting key elements of Russia's nuclear triad while still degrading assets actively involved in conventional strikes. There were even early reports that a Russian nuclear subbase near Murmansk was hit, although it now appears like later on it turned out that maybe those reports were false. But this shows just how much panic and confusion has been spreading throughout Russia. It reminds me of the beeper attack that the Mossad conducted.
That is true, right? Like the Russia's Arctic fleet is really a powerhouse. So attack on them, I think, would be too much. I think there's like weird politics at play here. With the Trump's pressure, I don't know if any of them is caving. But Trump basically telling Zelensky to basically beat it. And Zelensky and Putin's, like talk, like, is this happening? Is this not happening? Russia is not even taking that much of seriously, giving the demands that Ukraine doesn't want and all that back and forth. This is like a weird politics in a way to show Russia, like, if this stretches on, you are going to get fucked. So sweeten the deal type of thing in negotiations, and showing the West as well, like, Ukraine is still in this thing. Ukraine can still do damage type of thing. Showing American people, if not the president. So people put pressure on the president first place, and all the other European countries put pressure on USA. So it's a weird politics at play here. It wasn't just about hitting Russia where it hurts type of thing. It was a very political thing.
Against Hezbollah agents. And it reminds me of the threat analysis reports that I've read recently about how civilian container ships on floating water could be turned into hidden drone or missile silos against American bases by China or Iran. I thought all of this is an emerging type of warfare that I would call remote.
Wait a minute, did he have to edit some shit out? Because YouTube's like, nope.
Hybrid sabotage. So this attack has changed how we will think about warfare, I think. It will change how we in America will seek to protect our vulnerable strategic bombers. It'll change how we think about rear bases that we took for granted were safe and sound. I mean,
I highly doubt China would use FPV drones, but yeah, the attack that, if that happens, very different way.
If you drive a truck in America, forget about stopping anywhere near air bases without getting pulled over.
Oh, that's so damn true. The heavy paranoid US military will never allow this shit since this has happened.
Now, it's one of those events that will be studied in military history years from now. And obvious lesson to me is that point defense is necessary everywhere now. If you want to see all sources and show notes.
Yeah, I mean, it is historic, but it's not much about study, is it? Like, yeah, they just sneaked in some drones this time creatively from the truck carriers. Why not? Containers and shit like that. Like, yeah, it's something, like, it's creativity, but it's one thing to look out for. There's not much to study there, is it? Like, they just smuggled that in. Study on smuggling, like, that's it. Pretty sure, like, people are smuggled in drugs like that. They just, screw it, let's smuggle in drones. Why not? The more detail of the operation comes in, like how they conducted, that might be something to study about, like how the process worked. Well, that was how Ukraine smoked Russia's strategic bomber fleet by on Cappy army. If you like my channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.